Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, 26th of Ramadan, 1444 Hijri. We are almost going towards the end of this Salam, Mubarak Ramadan. Hope, inshallah ta'ala, Allah accepts all our doings during this month of Ramadan. Requesting our visiting alim, Shaykh Jafar, to please come on this member for today's speech. Wa Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Allahumma salli ala.
Again, for the well-being of the community, another salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahi r-raḥmāni r-raḥīm. Allahumma kun li waliyyika al-hujjat ibn al-Hasan. صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين. الحمد لله الذي جعل الحمد مفتاحا لذكري وسببا للمزيد من فضله ودليلا على آلائه وعظمته ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أرواحنا له فداء. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فاستقم كما أمرت ومن تاب معك ولا تطغوا إنه بما تعملون بصير. صدق الله علي العظيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jami'ul mu'mineen mu'minat. Until now, we've discussed 6 aspects of both personal and communal development, starting with making our intentions and then going to this aspect of taking on responsibility, recognizing our responsibility and our duty towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, towards ourselves and towards the community as well. And then the aspect of our unity, cooperation, doing amr bil ma'ruf, nahy al munkar. So these are all aspects of personal and communal development. And thus far, we've kind of split each of these topics into 2. One, focusing on our personal selves and how we can improve ourselves in these aspects with regards to amr bil ma'ruf, with regards to unity, tawheed al-amali, that following the Quran and following that sunnah of Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdalus salatu wassalam, with regards to amr bil ma'ruf, nahy al munkar, and the other topics. Since we have reached this point that it is the 26th of Ramadan, and perhaps we will be together for the next 3 nights or 4 nights, depending on when the moon sighting is. So instead of splitting the topics into 2 in that manner, I'll just give some of the general topics regarding both personal and communal development. Some of what is called the adab al-ma'ashira, the etiquettes of living together, the etiquettes of interacting with one another, or we can say socialization. Because we can understand that the advice, or at least what we learn from the Quran and what we learn from the Sunnah and the tradition of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdhalu salam with regards to this mu'ashira, and again it's on that pattern of Arabic, ashara, mu'ashara, where it denotes that there are two sides to this action. So ashara means like to live, mu'ashara, to live together. So it has to be more than one individual. And so each individual that comes together in that action, they're responsible for, again, understanding that adab. So for this reason, instead of dividing, as we have been until this point, to speak about personal development and then on a particular topic, for example, amr bil ma'ruf nahy anil munkar, and then the collective responsibility regarding that development, such as amr bil ma'ruf nahy anil munkar, I'll just simply cover this aspect of socialization, adabul ma'ashira, which is inclusive and comprehensive. The first, at least, advice of this adabul ma'ashira, which I want to cover, is in the letter, or at least in the beginning of that letter, that Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he wrote to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. And this is when Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he appointed Muhammad ibn Abu Bakr as the governor of Egypt. It's kind of interesting that we see that there are two letters in Nahj al-Balagha to the two governors that Imam Ali alayhi salam, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he appoints to Egypt. One is to Malik al-Ashtar, which I think gets quoted quite often, but the letter to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, perhaps at least from my encounter, or at least from some of the majalis I've heard, or some of the discussions of the different ulama, that it is less pointed to or examined versus the letter to Malik al-Ashtar. And of course, the letter to Malik al-Ashtar is much longer than the letter to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. And perhaps this kind of deals with, or at least gives us some idea of, again, the progression of the society of Egypt itself, that when Imam Ali, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, when he becomes the Khalifa, now he's appointing governors, he's shifting around certain things. So first he appoints Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr to Egypt. And at that time, perhaps the society, perhaps Egypt at that time, needed a certain direction, a certain focus, which Amir al-Mu'mineen, he writes in that letter, and during the time of Malik al-Ashtar, there was other aspects which we find some details in the letter to Malik al-Ashtar, such as appointment of judges, and who do you have with finances, how do you manage the military army, whereas these things are not highlighted as much in the letter to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. Nonetheless, it is a very valuable letter. So much so that you'll understand that how valuable even that letter to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr is. He said when Umar ibn As, on behalf of Muawiyah, he comes in, he attacks Egypt. And of course, Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, he is shaheed, he's martyred in the course of that. What happens is that Umar ibn As, he confiscates, again, the government documents, and among those documents is this letter from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. So this letter is taken back to Muawiyah in Sham, in Damascus. They said that when Muawiyah, he sees this letter, he sits down and he begins to read the letter that Amir al-Mu'mineen wrote to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. And as he's reading it, he's looking at it and he's examining it as if he's studying it. And you can see the kind of respect, or at least the kind of awe on his face, the surprise on his face at what the contents of this letter is. To the point that Walid ibn Uqba, when he sees Muawiyah studying the letter of Amir al-Mu'mineen to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, Walid ibn Uqba, he tells Muawiyah, he says, just give the order and I'll burn this, I'll destroy it. And so the response from Muawiyah is like, what? Why would you destroy something that is full of knowledge? Something is full of knowledge. And so Walid ibn Uqba, his response was that, well, if people see that, that you are reading and you're learning from the letter of Ali ibn Abi Talib, he says, what would people think? And so Muawiyah, again, he responded, he says, no, he's like, you don't burn something that has knowledge, that is valuable. Yes, we'll keep it, we'll put it aside, but people don't have to know that this is what the case is. So this is the value of the letter of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib to Walid ibn Uqba. Of course, its value in itself is from the blessed hand of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. But as I mentioned yesterday, that even those who had animosity against the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, they do not deny the greatness of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And this is one of those examples. So in that letter to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, Amir al-Mu'mineen, as I said, that first section of it, at least as it's divided up in the Nahj al-Balagha, he is pointing out, again, 4 advices to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr with regards to socialization, with regards to interacting, again, with this nation, with the people, with the ummah. And of course, in Misr or Egypt at that time, it's not only the Muslims who are living in that area. Yes, there are Muslims, there are Christians, there are Jews. It's a mixed area. This was, at that time, kind of the outskirts, one of the furthest outskirts or posts of the Muslim lands. So the first thing that Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, he tells to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, he says, فَخْفِضْ لَهُمْ جَنَاحَكَ. He says that, look, you're in this place. Of course, you're dealing with a lot of people. And this is one of the things that also Imam Ali, Amir al-Mu'mineen, alayhi salam, he tells even to Malik Ashtar that, look, the place that you're in is diverse. There's a lot of different people. Meaning it's not only Muslims there. There are Christians, there are all kinds of people. So Imam Ali, he tells him, he says that, look, respect everyone. In other words, that anyone you come across, you should respect them. And you should not, basically, the words that Imam Ali uses, very beautiful. He says, فَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ فَخْفِضْ لَهُمْ جَنَاحَكَ. And it stems from the Quran, to spread your wings over them. And so that respect is both love for the people who are under your authority, the people that you're interacting with, and also support. And this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he tells the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the Quran. He says, فَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لِمَنْ تَبَعَكَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the Prophet, he says, again, spread your wings over those who follow you among the believers. Some of the mufassirin, they say that this particular verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he tells the Prophet to spread his wing, it is referring to that moment in which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he is told to go out and to actually initiate his tabligh. In other words, when the Prophet was given that revelation, the only individuals who, again, knew of that revelation and had submitted to that revelation was, again, the Prophet himself, Khadija, and Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam as a young boy. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Prophet, he says, go out and invite the people. And the first group of individuals that he invited was his family. And part of that, again, spreading your wings to them was, again, to lend or to give them support that, look, yes, this message is coming. And so among my family, among these individuals, I will, again, call you to this message and you will have my support. This is also the moment when where the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he asks, he says, that who will be my supporter? Who will be that individual, again, who will come under his wing, who will be the supporter of Rasulullah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is the message that Imam Ali alayhi wasallam, he gives to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr when he first goes to Egypt. And so in order to, again, have the best type of socialization with individuals, we have to, again, lend our support to the community. Of course, start with our family, but then we begin to extend beyond that and see that, well, what is it that our community needs? What is it that I can give support in? Here I want to give one very beautiful, I guess, example, and this is an example that one of our ulama, he gave. He says that every one of us have this potential of being a Fir'aun. I'm giving this example because, again, the letter that Imam Ali alayhi wasallam, he writes is to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr in Egypt. Of course, we know that from the story of the Anbiya that Fir'aun was in Egypt. So this scholar, he says that, look, we all have this potential of being Fir'aun. And particularly if we're not those individuals who embody this quality of, as Imam Ali, he says, فَخْفَذْ جَنَاحَكَ لَهُمْ, like spreading our wings out. In other words, broaden, encompassing people into our fold, into our space, allowing them in. So he says everybody has this potential to be Fir'aun if we don't check ourselves and if we're not careful. And he says that, that our Pharaonic quality is only to the extent of what we interact with and what we encounter with, what our kingdom is. And so he says that some of us, the extent of our kingdom, of our Egypt, is just our home. He says, unfortunately, sometimes if we're not careful, then our house will become an Egypt, and we'll be the Pharaoh in that house. We'll be those, instead of lending support and comfort to the members of our family, that we're just dictating and we're tyrants in our own home. So he gives us one example. This is of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. We know Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, the fourth Khalifa after Muawiyah. Again, Muawiyah, he studied this letter of Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. The fourth Khalifa after that, and this is why, again, just having knowledge of it, if it's not being implemented, doesn't guarantee anything. We have to really embody that lesson. So Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, and he was the Khalifa during the time of Imam Sajjad alayhi wasalam, and of course during the Khilafat of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, again, one of the most harshest times that the believers face. In fact, one of the minions of Marwan, Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, was Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, who basically he killed 120,000 believers, Muslims, simply because they said that, oh, we follow this path of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim afsalatu wasalam. So this is Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. But he wasn't always like that. If we read the history books, they describe Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, they said that he says, Hamamatul Masjid. Hamamatul Masjid. Meaning that he was the pigeon of the masjid. Why? Because whenever people saw him, he was always in the masjid. He was masjid, reading the Quran, reading the Quran, reading the Quran. In fact, He said that he had even denounced the dunya. Oh, no, I don't want to have anything to do with the dunya. Nothing. Just me and Allah and the Quran. That's it. But when his father died, Marwan ibn Hakam, people came to him. He says, look, your father has died. Now the Khilafat is yours. It goes to you. You're the son. You're the eldest son. You have to become the Khalifa. This is recorded in history, and this is not in our books. You go look in Tabari. He says that Marwan ibn Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, at that point, he closed the Quran and he kissed it. He says, هَذَا فَرَاقٌ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنِكَ. He says, this is our separation. This is where we part. And he put the Quran on the shelf, and then he became the Khalifa. And as I said, that under his reign, one of the most difficult for the mu'mineen. 120,000, as I said, Shia, followers of Ahlul Bayt, alayhim afsadu salam, were martyred, were killed. So this idea of socialization that Imam Ali, Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, alayhi afsadu salam, that he's giving is important, not just simply, oh, well, these make sense. It seems like common sense. But if we're not implementing them, this is where the problem is. So, فَخْفِضْ جَنَاحَكَ لَهُمْ فَخْفِضْ لَهُمْ جَنَاحَ. So allow people into your space. Give them support and give them your love. The second advice that Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, he gives to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, he says, وَلَئِنْ لَهُمْ جَنَابَكَ. And he says, and humble yourself before people. Humble yourself. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, he's talking to someone who he is appointing as a governor, a person who has authority. But Amir al-Mu'mineen says, yeah, okay, so you have authority, so what? It is your responsibility to be humble. In fact, if you're in that position, you have a greater duty and responsibility to be humble. Again, in a different manner, in a very beautiful manner, he tells Malik al-Ash'ari the same thing, letter 53 of Nahj al-Balagha, where he tells Malik al-Ash'ari, he says, look, he says that although you are the governor, you have authority in Egypt and Misr, you have authority there, know that someone has authority over you. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, he says, and that's me. And know that I have an authority over me. He said, and that's Allah. He says, so for no moment should you think that, oh, well, you're in a position of leadership, you're in a position of power, that you shouldn't be humble. So he says, humble yourself before everyone. And this is also what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he tells to his prophet. He tells to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he does so in the best of manners, the most beautiful manners. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the prophet, he says, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. He says, by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says that you be kind to the believers. لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he uses the word, and this is one of the kind of beautiful, eloquent aspects of the Quran. He says, لِنْتَ لَهُمْ. He says that you're lenient with them, you're easy with them, you're humble before them, before the people. So he's not commanding, at least the verb is not a command, but the verb is a past tense, meaning that, look, this is the way it is. It has to be, and this is the way it is. So by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy, and of course we know that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he's rahmatan lil alameen. That he sent him rahmatan lil alameen. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells him, he says, this is the way that you have to be with every single person. Every single person. For ourselves, why is this important? To be lenient, to show mercy, to be kind to individuals. Although some of the mufassirin, when they speak about this particular verse, فَبِمَا رَحْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لَنْتَ لَهُمْ, they say, oh, this is something that's specific with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Razi, he said this is specific with Rasulullah. Why? Because those individuals who had abandoned their post in Uhud, this is the Prophet, he didn't come down on them hard. And he was like, look, this was the deal. You were supposed to stay. You left. You abandoned the post. This is what happened. He says, but look, next time you're in this position, then you do as you're told. So there was no like harsh reprimand for them. So this is why one of the commentators says, oh, this is only for Rasulullah. But we know that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's uswatun hasana. He's the best example for all of us. So at the same time, we have to can embody that quality of being lenient and merciful so that we don't become that Fir'aun. Not in our homes, not in society, not in our masajid. That we have to be merciful. Why? Because yes, people make mistakes. People make mistakes. We all make mistakes. And if we're not merciful, if we're not lenient, if we can't find it within ourselves to overlook others' faults and mistakes, then why would we expect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to overlook our mistakes? Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi a very beautiful statement. He says, Man lam yarham, lam yurham. He says, that person who's not merciful to others, who has rahmat for others, he says, that person will not receive rahmah. In other words, again, if you can't be kind and supportive of others, then don't complain as well. When you don't find kindness, you don't find support, you don't find that rahmah. But if you're merciful and you're kind to others, then yes, that will come back around to you. One very beautiful example as well that we find within the Rawayat, the stories of the Anbiya. They said our Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam narrated that when he had become, again, the Aziz, he had this post in Misr, Egypt. So one day he's out with, again, his guard, his entourage, and he sees this young boy. A young boy, and apparently, from what he's wearing, his clothes are kind of tattered, he's in a state of poverty. And so Jibreel comes to Nabi Yusuf. He says, Ya Yusuf, he says, do you recognize this boy? Again, a teenage boy. He says, do you recognize this boy? So Yusuf, he says, no, who is this boy? He says, this person, he says that when you were in the house with Zuleika and she locked all the doors. He says, and that baby gave a testimony for you. He says, this is the baby. Now he's a young boy. And so Yusuf, he said, what? And subhanAllah, he's in this state, he's in a state of poverty. So at that point, Yusuf, he called his guys, he says, no, look, bring him, let's give him very, very good clothes of, someone who is wealthy. And then Yusuf, he specified for him an amount that, look, this is the amount of money that he should receive, and until he gets himself situated, he gets himself settled, he's able to take care of himself from that point on. When Yusuf, he made this order, then according to this narration, it said Jibreel, he smiled. And so Yusuf, he says, yeah, Jibreel, he says, why is he smiling? He says, did I give too little? Did I specify too little? And so Jibreel, he says, no. He says, no. He says, I'm smiling because this boy, that he gave a testimony in your favor. And because of that one testimony, he only said it once, that look, if Yusuf's shirt is ripped from the front, then he's at fault. He's at fault. Zuleika's telling the truth and he's at fault. But if his shirt is ripped from behind, then he's innocent and Zuleika's at fault. He said, he gave this one testimony. He says, and now this is what you do. This is your kindness and this is your rahmah. This is your mercy that you give for this person who gives that one testimony. He says, so I'm smiling at that. What is that mercy and that rahmah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives for his servant, that every day, and more than one time, they bear witness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. La ilaha illallah. They bear witness for the sake of Allah. La ilaha illallah. He says, this is your kindness to this one person for one testimony. And how is Allah's rahmah? And how is Allah's kindness for His ibad, for His servants who testify every day for Him? So that's second advice of Amir al-Mu'mineen, was to be humble. The third advice is get to show your best self, that when you're interacting with individuals, your best self should be presented. As he says, and he says in these words, he says, وَبْسُطْ لَهُمْ وَجْهَكَ. وَبْسُطْ لَهُمْ وَجْهَكَ. Basata means like to open. In other words, if we think of it in today's terms, there's this thing that's called emotional management or emotional regulation, regulating your behavior. That sometimes you may not like something, you may not be happy with something. So a person who is able to kind of control themselves, their emotions, their regulations. So if someone, for example, just simply says something to you, maybe they're having a bad day, but when they approach you, the way they speak to you, the way they say something to you, or if you give salams and the way they respond in that salams, or maybe not even respond to it. So how do you react to that? Is our reaction such that immediately our displeasures, why did this person say this? I gave this person salam. Why are they saying this way? Or is your response that, well, even though this person didn't respond the way I think that he or she should have responded, that I'm not going to show anger. I'm not going to be upset. Perhaps that person, they're having a difficult day. Let me find out what's going on with them. So this is wabsut lahum wajhak, to deal with someone not with a look of anger, but treating them in the best of manners. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gives this advice to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, whereas he states, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَذًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَنْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. He tells Rasulullah, he says that if you were difficult with the people, that if you were hard-hearted and you were harsh with people, he says that who would stay with you? So the people, they would leave. They would not stay around. So don't be harsh with individuals. And of course, unfortunately, I'll say this, and this is part of our reality. Part of the reality that we need to reflect upon is that quite often when our communities, even our household, when they divide, when they split, when they break apart, it's because of that. Because of our reaction to things, because of us not having mercy with one another, not realizing, oh, you know what, maybe this person is not having a good day. Let me find out. Let me step down. Let me back up. And I'll say this, especially in our households, that statement of Amir al-Mu'mineen says that the one who doesn't show mercy will not receive mercy. But you can guarantee this, that if you're not shown mercy, you can diffuse that anger, you can diffuse that situation with mercy, with rahmah. With rahmah. And one of the blessings of that, according to one of the narrations, right now I'm not sure which of the Ma'sumi mentioned this, but I recall in the narrations they said that the household in which there is mercy, in which there is rahmah, meaning that the parents are kind to their children, children are kind to their parents, spouses are kind and merciful to each other. They said, in this household, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down the rahmah. But that house is devoid of it, meaning, the household is always at odds with each other, always angry with each other. And this is also our house as well, the Baytullah, our masjid. That if you want the rahmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to also enter in, this is the way that we have to interact with one another. Why do we have to interact with one another? One of the Urafa, Muhammad Ismail Dulabi. Again, simple Urafa. He wasn't one of those individuals who, okay, we studied to become mujtahid. So, no, very humble, simple person. But even the ulama says, no, this is a person with ma'rifah. He's among the Urafa. One of the statements that he said, and because he would also quite often get invited to people's homes. He was ustad of akhlaq also. He taught akhlaq. He would give these lectures, just kind of talks. And he wouldn't call them lectures, but there were talks, discussions on akhlaq. So naturally, people gravitated towards him, and they would invite him to different places to come and to talk, and people would invite them to their homes, even to stay over. But he had one standard that he lived by, and of course, this is perhaps something that came out later, where he said, if I went into a house, he says, and if I saw that in that household that there was no rahmah, it was like that either the spouses are constantly fighting, nagging, at each other, or that situation was not like that. He says, I would never stay over at that house. He says, yeah, I'll drink my tea, whatever. They've invited me. This is the fulfilling the right of the believer. They invited me to drink tea, this and that. He says, but if they offered me to stay and spend the night, he says, no. He says, I wouldn't stay. He says, why? Because that house is devoid of rahmah. He says, if the individuals in the house can't get along and they're fighting, they're constantly fighting, he says, there's no rahmah there. He says, so I won't stay and lay and sleep in that place that there's no rahmah. Subhanallah. This is the importance of, again, checking ourselves, understanding that how we're reacting. And again, this statement by Amir al-Mu'mineen, وَابْسُدْ لَهُمْ وَجْهَكَ. In other words, keep your expressions kind, because sometimes we don't even have to say anything. Someone says something to us, and if our face, we begin to grimace, and although we didn't say anything, it's understood. Completely understood. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He also addresses this in one of the other surahs, عَبَسَ وَتَوَلَّى أَنْ جَاءَهُ الْأَعْمَى. And of course, it was not Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam who frowned at the blind person, but again, the individuals around him. The verse came to Rasulullah so that, again, and this is one of the adabs. If we look at this, how even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that His adab in educating the believer, so that it wasn't Rasulullah, like unfortunately some people they think, it wasn't Rasulullah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses Rasulullah so that the people around him, when they hear this, they understand that, oh, look, I did this, I shouldn't have done this. Even to this extent that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, even in His interaction with the mu'mineen, with the believers, He is observing this kind of, you could say even adab, this type of, that how do we, cultivate this adab in other individuals. Yes, of course, those who disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who are clearly going against the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's very direct. يَكِيدُونَ كَيْدًا وَأَكِيدُ كَيْدًا. Oh, they want to plot and plan and scheme against them. It says, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of planners. In other words, He turns their plot and their scheme against them. He's very direct about those things. But when it came to the believers, that, or at least someone who, within that community, they said, La ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is maintaining that individual's dignity. He says, Ya Rasulullah, abasa wa tawalla an ja'ahu al-a'ma. And then you give this revelation that, oh, yes, this individual, he frowned when the blind person came. And so that person will realize, oh, subhanAllah, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have even made that expression. Even in front of someone who couldn't see that expression to this extent. Because the blind person wouldn't see that expression, but everyone else saw this expression. advice that Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam, he gives to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. Salli ala Muhammad. And this is, I believe, very important advice that he gives, especially when it is dealing with community, our socialization, our interaction with one another. He says, وَآيَسْ بَيْنَهُمْ فِي اللَّحْظَةِ وَالنَّظَرَةِ حَتَّى لَا يَطْمَعَ الْعُظَمَاء فِي حَيْفِكَ لَهُمْ وَلَا يَيْأَسَ الضُّعَفَاء مِنْ عَدْلِكَ عَلَيْهِمْ. So he says that observe equality among people at all times, at every moment. How you interact with them, how you engage with them. So observe this equality so that the strong among them, the prosperous, the wealthy, or the people who have some sort of status or class, so that they don't expect anything from you. Oh, this is a special favor. Special favor. Why? Because of, oh, hey, I'm this person, I'm from this family, or I'm from this group or that group. So that equality should be to that extent that those individuals who, yes, they may have some sort of status or such, that they will not expect it. It says, no, this person is going to be just. So if they're going to interact with me this way, they're going to interact with everybody else that way. If they're going to give me this, they're going to give everyone else the same. وَلَا يَيْأَسَ الضُّعَفَاء. And so that those who are weak, those who are maybe less fortunate, those who are, their class, their status is a little bit lower, that they do not despair of your justice. I mean, they know that, oh, hey, you know what? If you speak in this tone with this individual who's of this class, that he's going to speak to me in the same tone, or she's going to speak to me in the same tone. That the way they speak to me is not going to vary based on, who I am. Am I poor? Am I rich? Am I from this city or that city? If I'm of this class or that class? So no, this person is fair. This person is equitable. And again, this goes back to that aspect that we spoke before, that, again, one of the things that we must and we need to develop within ourselves is this sense of justice. This is in line with that, to be equitable, to treat everyone the same, to treat everyone fairly. Don't treat a person simply based on who they are or better than someone else. Or, oh, hey, I don't know this person, so we're not going to pay any attention to it. No. Pay attention. Be equal. Be fair. Unfortunately, because of this as well, this is one of the, I would say, the biggest sore issues that we find in our community. When it comes to community development, sometimes this is one of the things that it sticks out. Oh, this group or that group. When Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, our Imam, he's giving this advice to Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr. As who? As, again, the leader of a city at that time, or province under his authority. He's teaching us the best way to interact. And again, these advices are not simply for us to, oh, hey, we can enumerate them, learn them, but we don't practice them, we don't implement them. Trust me, when we implement them, trust me, every differences among ourselves will be diffused. They've given us the formula. They've given us the right measure to do everything. And now it's up for us to walk in the footsteps of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And when we do so, not only our households, not only our masajid, our interactions, but all of them will be in the best of action. Inshallah, we will embody that quality that Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wa salam he stated, Kunu zayna lana wa la takunu shay'an lana. Be an ornament of beauty for us. Be that ornament of attraction towards us. That when people, they see the followers of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, that they understand that, this is what it means to be a human being. This is what it means to be on the path of haqq, the path of truth. In fact, these are the things that we must do as well in order to truly await the Imam of our time, Ajjal Faraj Sharif. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and aid us and give us tawfiq and success in implementing these advices of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali bin Abi Talib, alayhi salatu wasalam, in our lives. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins, to cover our shortcomings. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us our needs. We ask Him to have mercy upon those who have passed away from our friends and family members. We ask Him to give cure to those who are ill among our friends and family members. Most importantly, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of Imam Zaman and make us among His helpers, His companions, and those who sacrifice their lives for Him. Bismillah r-raḥmāni r-raḥīm. Allahumma ghfir dhunūbana واستر عيوبنا وقضي حوائجنا واشف مرضانا وارحم أمواتنا وعجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه وتحت لواء بحق محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد.
توكلت على الحي الذي لا يموت والحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له ولي من الذل وكبره تكبيرا. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين عليًا ولي الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين عليًا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين علي وأبناه المعصومين حقا حقا حجج الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. سورة المغرب. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله تعالى وقوته أقوم وأقول. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد كذلك الله ربي. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها تبيلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله تعالى وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله والحمد لله وخير الأسماء لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. تسبيح فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا علي يا عظيم يا غفور يا رحيم. أنت الرب العظيم الذي ليس كمثله شيء وهو السميع البصير. وهذا شهر نظمته وكرمته وشرفته وفضلته على الشهور، وهو الشهر الذي فرضت صيامه علي، وهو شهر رمضان الذي أنزلت فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان، وجعلت فيه ليلة القدر وجعلتها خير من 1000 الشهر. فيا ذا المن ولا يمن عليك من علي بفقاق رقبة من النار، في من تمن عليه وادخلني الجنة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Women, inshallah, will be back. Brothers, there is an ittimas dua for a brother. He is almost on his deathbed, but we know that if we all pray, inshallah, there can be changes to his life. Let's all give the wasta of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, Imam Zainul Abdin alayhi salam, Babul Hawaj, Imam Musa Kazim alayhi salam, and pray for this brother and all the brothers and sisters who are ailing everywhere in the world. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه يكشف سوء. 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 برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Inshallah, we'll have the short iftar break. We'll be back by 9:10. After Salat al-Isha, we'll have the youth presentation and ending with dua iftitah and ziyarat. Tomorrow, inshallah, being Tuesday, we will try to have dua tawassul and dua iftitah, inshallah ta'ala. Brothers, as you know that day after tomorrow, the last Wednesday of this Mahi Ramadan, the iftar will be for the benefit of all our marhumeens. Anyone who would like to contribute towards this iftar fund is kindly requested to please contact Dabir Bhai, and inshallah ta'ala your funds will be included, your marhumeens will be included in this sawab. Surah Fatiha is requested for tonight's iftar. Sponsors marhumeen, your marhumeen, Shuhada Islam, wa kul arwah al-marhumin al-marhumat. Sawab al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Do we have Sister Alia Ali, who will be presenting today? Is she around in the center, in the hall at the moment? Salam. Alia Ali, can you come towards the stage area, please, if you are around? She's not here? Okay.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين عليا وأبناه المعصومين حقا حقا حجج الله. حي عن الصلاة حي عن الصلاة حي عن الفلاح حي عن الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. صلاة العشاء. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر. تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله تعالى وقوته أقوم وأقعد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربي. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك بسر مستودع في فاطمة أن تعجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان الساعة العجال 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 يا الله. وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه وتحت لوائه بحق محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بحول الله تعالى وقوته أقوم وأقول. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمد ربي صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بحول الله تعالى وقوته أقوم وأقعد. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله أكبر. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. رب صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله والحمد لله وخير الأسماء لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم ادخل على أهل القبور السرور. اللهم اغن كل فقير. اللهم اشف كل جائع. اللهم اكس كل عريان. اللهم دين كل مدين. اللهم فرج عن كل مكروب. اللهم رد كل غريب. اللهم فك كل أسير. اللهم أصلح كل فاسد من أمور المسلمين. اللهم اشف كل مريض. اللهم صد فقرنا بغناك. اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك. اللهم اغن عنا الدين وأغننا من الفقر إنك على كل شيء قدير برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل. We will have the youth presentation and then inshallah we'll have dua iftitah ending with ziyarat. Requesting Sister Ali to please come and take the mic from me and make her presentation. Salam Alaikum, beta. Just put it here.
Assalamu alaikum. Today I'm going to read a presentation about Surah Al-Fil, the elephant. Place and order of revelation. Place of revelation, Makkah. Order of revelation, 19th surah revealed to Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be on him. Current order in Quran 105, number of verses 5. Imam Ali Sadiq Salam said, if one recites Surah Al-Fil in one's obligatory prayers, then all things in the world would testify on the day of resurrection that he was among those who prayed, and he will be taken to heaven at the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The person who recites this surah is kept safe from his enemies and has his difficulties and problems solved quickly. Recitation of this surah is also helpful in remaining safe from evil tyrant rulers. Theme of the surah. In this surah, God points to the story of the army of the elephant who went towards Makkah in order to destroy the Kaaba, but they were killed by birds of Ababil sent by God. The birds threw stones or clods on the army and killed them. As a result of the attack, people in the army were like chewed meat. The recitation of the surah Al-Fil in the prayer. According to some marjas, if one wants to recite Surah Al-Fil in his or her daily obligatory prayers, after the recitation of Surah Al-Hamd, one should take caution and recite Surah Quraysh as well, because they practically count as one and the same surah. Verses in translation. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most merciful. Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil fil. Have you not considered how your Lord dealt with the processors of the elephant? Alam yaj'alu qaydahum fi tazlil. Did he not cause their way to end in confusion? Wa arsala alayhim tayran ababil, and sent against them flocks of birds. Tarmihim bihijaratin min sijil, pelting them with stones of baked clay. Faja'alhum qaysufin maqul, so he rendered them like chewed up straw. Question of the revelation. This surah refers to the people that took place in the year of the birth of the Prophet, peace be upon him, in 570 AD. The people of the places around Makkah were very jealous of the Quraysh and their position as guardians of the Kaaba. With the help of the Ethiopians, the general of the Yemen, whose name was Abraha, built a large church in Sana'a in Yemen to compete with the Kaaba. The church did not attract as many people as the Kaaba in Makkah as he had hoped for. He therefore decided to destroy the Kaaba. An army with an elephant marched towards Makkah to attack and destroy the Kaaba. Allah sent upon them a huge flock of birds who pelted the army with small stones in their beaks. The mighty army was suddenly devastated. The result of the attack was that Abraham's army became like straw eaten up. The year became legendary as the year of the elephant. This chapter and the next surah, Al-Quraysh, are a pair which together are a warning to the Quraysh that they were protected, not because of their status, but because Allah wished to protect the Kaaba to make way for the coming of his final messenger. Did you know Abraha built a large, lavish church in Sana'a known as Al-Qulays, hoping to attract the Arabs to it? Abraha decided to destroy the Kaaba with 12,000 soldiers in the month of Muharram. Post-incident gave Makkah its independence and status, and the year was called the Year of the Elephant, Amul Fil. The Prophet, peace be upon him, was born 50 days after this event. There were two custodians of Kaaba at that time, Abdul Muttalib and Gulaid, father of Hazrat Khadija alayhi salam. When this chapter of the Quran was recited by the Holy Prophet before non-believers of Quraysh, no one raised any voice to belie him. Jazakallah for attending this presentation. Please recite salawat.
Ahsan, Jazakallah. This was one of the very nice presentation by this little sister. Please recite a loud salawat for her appreciation. Requesting Brother Ibrahim to please come and recite Dua Iftitah, and inshallah after that we'll have ziyarat. Bar Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل الساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أغلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاع له في ملكه، ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه، ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده الباسط بالجود يده الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيد كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة وغناك عنه قديم وهو عندي كثير وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إن عفوك عن ذنبي وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي وسفحك عن ظلمي وسترك على قبيح عملي وحلمك عن كثير جرمي عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي أتمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منه الذي رزقتني من رحمتك وأريني في قدرتك وعرفتني من إجابتك فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا لا خائفا ولا وجلا مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك فإن أبتأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك ولعل الذي أبتأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور فلم أر مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي يا رب إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك وتتودد إلى فلا أقبل منك كان لي تتولى عليك فلم يمنعك ذلك من رحمته فلم يمنعك ذلك من رحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله ولا شبيه يشاكله ولا ظهير يعاضده قهر بعزته الأعزاء وتواضع لعظمته العظماء فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أناديه ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصيه ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازيه فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني، وعزيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مونغة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا وأذكره مسبحا. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه، ولا يغلق بابه، ولا يرد سائله، ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين، ويرفع المستضعفين ويذع المستكبرين، ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. والحمد لله قاسم الجبارين، مبير الظالمين، مدرك الهاربين، نكال الظالمين، صريخ المستصرخين، موضع حاجات الطالبين، معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها، وترجف الأرض وعمارها، وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في قمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا، وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق، ويرزق ولا يرزق، ويطعم ولا يطعم، ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى، وهو حي لا يموت، بيده الخير، وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيرتك من خلقك، وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك، أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأصنى، وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفتك وأهل الكرامة عليك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين، عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك، وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على صديقة الطاهرة فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين. وصل على سبتي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي، حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك، صلاة كثيرة دائمة اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك، استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله، مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له، أبدل له من بعد خوفه أمنا، يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملناه، فما قصرنا عنه فبلغناه. اللهم المم به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، وأعزز به ذلتنا، وأغن به آعلنا، واغض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فغرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به أسرنا، وأنجه به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، وأعطنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشف به صدورنا، وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله، وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله، وبضر تكشفه، ونصر تعزه وسلطان حق تظهره ورحمة منك تجللناها وعافية منك تلبسناها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل.
صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. متوجه زيارة. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله. السلام عليك السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، خصوصا سيدي مولاي أبو الفضل العباس وقاسم ابن الحسن ومسلم ابن يقيل وهاني ابن عروة وحبيب ابن مظاهر والحر الشهيد الرياحي. السلام عليكم يا ساداتي وموالي جميع ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء. السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء. السلام عليك يا سلطان العرب والعجم يا علي بن موسى الرضا، روحي وجسمك الفداء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك ورحمة الله وبركاته. بواذب الصلوات.